Welcome to a new edition of Insurance Questions Podcast. Number 144, Don. Holy crap.
We're closing in on the big 150.
But we're not talking about insurance today, Don. We're
Not
talking
today.
about boxing?
No, not right here. Not
MMA?
right now. Not right here. Not right now.
You and Sarah slapping the crap out of each other?
Definitely not right here. Not right
I
now.
think
Pop-Tarts.
it's more
Gotta be
me and
Pop-Tarts.
you than me and Donnie. I'm just putting that out there.
Gotta be Pop-Tarts then, right?
Nope.
What is it then, Don?
It's tax tip questions.
I don't know nothing about taxes.
That's why we're here, so we can learn.
Yeah, that's why I'm here, the good-looking one.
That's
is
right.
to explain about the taxes.
So what's your topic about today, Sarah?
I'm gonna wing it because I've had a few things that have come up that I kind of want to discuss.
So you're
but
gonna
it's
wing
not
it like chicken wings, buffalo
Yeah,
chicken wings.
exactly like that horrible chicken wing movie that we were talking about that I have yet to see.
Eddie, you better do the disclaimer. I think we could get in trouble here today.
All of the statements and comments by Eddie Buffalo, Sassy Sarah, and Donnie Lowe are purely for entertainment purposes.
Like, subscribe, share, follow, do all the things on all the social medias. Eddie loves to get all your questions, comments, concerns, everything on TikTok. So feel free to head that on over to him. Donnie and I are also on social media if you want to interact, although I'm not on it as much. The go-to is Eddie. Just bug Eddie.
And I just want to throw it out there. I've only gotten one complaint about me since we've been doing this. Donnie's
really?
got none. But there's somebody else on the screen that I get complaints about all the time.
Hey, that's just because I talk about things that, sensitive people
Taboo.
Taboo. So hit
and
that fan mail button.
I can't say it because Eddie will get mad at me if I bring up an incident that I talked about before that he got spammed for, because how dare I talk about
Yeah, you know what?
furry
Do
family.
what you got to do because I'm going to get them anyways.
So hit the fan mail button to send Eddie some emails. And again, the TikTokers, Eddie's great on that. He loves to communicate that way with you. So do that. And we do appreciate you subscribing and liking our videos and our audios. So thank you so much. We appreciate
That's
you.
why we appreciate you, Don.
So, what did you guys do this weekend before we get all into taxes?
I got very sick from my COVID and my flu shot. It's been great.
Oh, that stinks.
It's been fantastic. Then I watched my Buffalo Bills get the poop kicked out of them last night.
It wasn't an ugly game for a Bills fan.
No.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when I went to the gym this morning, I got to hear everybody tease me, which I don't really care because I think I brought up before that it just drives me crazy that after the last time that the Dallas Cowboys lost, nobody had Dallas Cowboys stuff on in the gym. Us Buffalo people, we've been beaten up so many times that we're Bills fans through thick and thin.
That's right.
Through wins and losses, through Super Bowl appearances, Super Bowl losses, playoff appearances, playoff losses. So, we just keep on coming back for more punishment.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So how about you, Sarah? What'd you do exciting this weekend?
So this weekend, Aiden had a football party. He had a game on Friday, although he was a little sick, so he just went to go cheer on his team. And we got to stay with the varsity team, so he got to see that and be on the field. And then
that's exciting.
We ended up having dinner after, so he got to stay up till like almost midnight, which is So he slept in most of Saturday because he was so tired. And that was about it. There was a new show that we were kind of binge watching yesterday, and it was so funny because there were 2 episodes left, and he's like, "Oh, it's 10 o'clock. I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed."
God, that's good.
That's so cute you say that. Like, he's going to get mad I say that, but
I saw a heck of a movie that you'd probably like, Sarah, because you like all the conspiracy things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not supposed to be about Jeffrey Epstein, but it so is.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Blink Twice.
Okay.
I'll have to check that one out.
Mm-hmm. And the producer was Lenny Kravitz's daughter, Zoe Kravitz.
Mm-hmm.
And she came right out and said it's a true story.
Oh, really?
And it is just crazy stuff. If half of that stuff was true, that's just god awful.
So I have an issue where I like conspiracy theories and I like horror movies and shows and stuff, but I don't like this is factual and it's something horrid that happened. I don't really like those just because I don't like to think about it. I'm one of I'm going to dig my head in the sand. I will give to charities who can handle that, but I'm not one who can with all that.
Well, if you read the reviews and what they have to say about that movie, they're all saying like, well, it's not about Jeffrey Epstein, but we're not saying that it isn't about him. I'm like, well, what the hell is that?
I know.
Well,
really.
and I've gone through the conspiracy theories of that's what happens in Hollywood and all the horrible things that happen. And then now there's the case against, P. Diddy and everything else. And I have to listen to that with a grain of salt because I'm like, you did some horrible things or allegedly did some horrible things. It just, I don't know. I don't like thinking there's people like that in the world. I know that there are. I try to avoid people like that, but it's just the depravity. I'm like, oh my God, my brain can't comprehend how you could do a lot of the stuff that is said is done.
It is crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah.
I just kind of a little bit off topic. I participated in a walk for Alzheimer's, to end Alzheimer's on Saturday in Buffalo. It was right on the
Where was
the
that
waterfront.
at, John? Where did they do that?
Right on the waterfront off of Furman Boulevard. The outer harbor basically is where it was. There had to be at least a couple thousand people there. It was great walk, and I know they raised a lot of money for research, so that's a great thing. So it was a real good thing.
Have a couple beverages at Charlie's Boatyard afterwards?
No. We the tradition is with the people that we go with family and that we go out for lunch after pizza.
Nice, very nice.
Wings.
How many people would you say were there, Don?
At least 2,000. But the thing that's so big.
Wow, that's crazy.
The venue, so you can have 2,000. It looks like a couple hundred, but I think around 2,000, and they probably made at least $300,000. So it was very nice.
Is this Alzheimer's Awareness Month, or is that October?
I'm not sure, but they typically have this walk in Buffalo in September. I think a lot of the walks are in September's. So maybe it is in September.
Because I know, like a lot of the football games yesterday, they already were wearing stuff for Cancer Awareness Month in October.
Oh, right.
So I thought that was kind of interesting that they were a little bit early on that. But.
Yeah, exactly. Get the jump on it. So that's what I did this weekend.
What you got for us, Sarah?
So there are a few things that have run across the past week, because you guys know tax deadline's coming up. If you've extended, April 15th is the deadline, which is in 2 weeks. It's a Tuesday.
October,
which is
not April.
October.
You said April.
April.
Well, that is a tax deadline as well, but that's in a few more months.
Yes, Sarah just does her time travel on this show.
I do. I do like my time travel.
Sarah, we got to go back to the future. It's your kids. We got to stop them.
Who knows? I mean, I raised them, so they could probably be doing some mischievous things. It's hilarious. They always say that, they're super weird and they say stuff. I was like, yeah, that's how I raised you. I didn't raise you to be normal. Like, just accept it. It makes life easier. Anywho, so I've had a few different clients come to me. One of the biggest things that they have issues with is they start side gigs And the side gigs are starting to make money, and they don't really understand the difference between the type of structures that they can do. A lot of people know of the sole proprietorship, basically meaning you're running the business. If you purchase things or have to provide something to someone else, like a W-9 form, which is basically your business name, your address, if usually you provide your social security number. There are no legal protections. I also mentioned, if you always want to know structures and legal protections, you need to speak with an attorney. It's always best to have a full understanding of how all that plays. I will just give the accounting aspect and what I've seen from what I'm saying. So, for example, proprietorship, I know that if you were to get sued, they could take your house, they could take your car, they could take pretty much everything you own. Which is why you hear a lot of people saying about LLCs, which is a limited liability company, protecting your assets. Doesn't mean that they can't sue you personally, and there's a lot of hurdles that they got to go through, but it's something, again, speak with an attorney about. But what happens is when you create an LLC, you can either get an EIN from the IRS, which is then the number you provide instead of your social, or you can just still use your social. It really just depends on how you want to handle that, but it gives you that legal protection. The sole proprietorship and LLC can still be filed on your personal tax return, so it doesn't create a new tax return unless you do additional steps. You can do all the deductions and income and everything else. So it's something to look into. If I've had a lot of realtors come to me that they were unsure if they needed to do an LLC. I always think it's better to have that LLC protection versus a sole proprietorship. But I tell everyone, speaking with an attorney is the best route for the legal aspect, and then just make your determination then. If your profit is more than $40,000 a year, I always recommend looking into what's called an S Corp. And that's basically, it's a new return that you need to file, but you put yourself on payroll. So you're making those payments to yourself for W-2 wages. So you're paying in Social Security, you're paying in Medicare, and you're also paying your federal taxes. With a standard LLC or sole proprietorship, you have to make estimated tax payments, and you get penalized if you don't by the end of the year. There's still the self-employment income. You're still paying Social Security. You're still paying Medicare. So the only difference is, I also mentioned, because I have some clients who come to me, they're like, I'm not going to make those payments. I'm just never going to. I always tell them, look into the S Corp, as long as the business can afford the expense of the new tax return and putting themselves on W-2 wages, because it's basically, then they can make themselves payments through W-2s, take out the federal tax withholding. They don't have to worry about trying to make those payments. Or if the company fluctuates, one quarter they're doing great, the next quarter they're not doing great. They're very seasonal. With an S Corp, you can cut a 1-year payroll. It doesn't matter if it's the beginning or the end, or you can cut it whenever you want. The IRS just wants to make sure you're getting paid I lost the word on it, but basically, based on the income and the expenses, you're paying yourself a wage as if you were going to go work for a competitor. Okay. You're not underpaying yourself. You can't say that, oh yeah, I'm a CFO of a company that makes $2 million and I pay myself $10,000 a year. Right. There are some strategies you can do with stocks and options, which is what you hear with the millionaires, which we'll talk to a little bit in there. I try not to go too deep into that because it really depends on the person's situation. So always talk to a tax professional if you want to make sure. But I kind of wanted to give that. Some people do corporations if they know, hey, I'm never going to pull money out. I'm never going to pay for anything personally. I'm only going to pay myself the distributions from the company, or I'm going to pay myself wages from the company. then that's great. Corporations will pay the taxes on the profit. It doesn't roll onto your personal return. But if you take distributions or draws from the company, pay stuff personally, it just adds a whole complex layer. And that's where you get the double taxation. So speaking with the attorney first to determine what liability risk you want, and then speaking with the tax person to determine what other structure you want from a tax standpoint.
Right. I have a question for you, not to derail
Sure.
you. So
No, you're good.
if you're talking with clients and they're saying, I'm going to have a side gig that I want to do, and
Mhm.
and they start making money, and now suppose somebody says, well, I've got like 2 or 3 different side gigs to generate revenue. Is
Mhm.
it good to have like one, maybe an S corp, and then some individual LLCs feed up to the S corp?
So it really, really depends on the type of the business structure. Like, for example, you can have a holding company and then other companies kind of report to that. One of my clients, they have the main company and then other LLCs that break off, but they're called disregarded entities. So it's similar to I'm going to try to break it out as layman terms as possible. So basically, disregarded entity is kind of like a sole prop. You still get that protection of the LLC.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of it going on that partner's or personal tax return, it will be on that business return as an additional LLC
Okay.
that feeds into the main thing, but it's separated out, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Are there tax advantages to doing it that way versus
there
individual?
are. It really just depends. So I don't want to give too much of this client situation, but it basically comes into because I don't want to talk into that. It's specifics. So talk to a tax attorney. And the main kind of reason is the industry that they're in is very specific, and I don't want to give too much information.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
There's like patents and not worth going down that route. But yeah, so it's always best if you're unsure. I always say talk to a lawyer first to understand the liability aspect of what you want coverage wise, personally and business wise, and then talk to a tax accountant. So one thing that I don't mind doing that I've done before is I'll have meeting with the client and their lawyer.
Right.
That way they're not playing telephone and they're not having multiple meetings. It's one meeting. I will say, hey, this is what you can look at from the tax standpoint. Their lawyer will say this is what you can look at from the legal, and they get all the information at one time. That's something also if you're not reaching out to me, which is perfectly fine, reach out to someone and see if they'll be willing to do that. Because then that, again, less information you have to try to digest over multiple meetings. And it might help come out with more information of what is the best fit for you and your situation.
Right. That makes sense.
And then the reason I wanted to kind of bring that up is I do have multiple clients who are in higher tax brackets and have extra funds. And one of the things is going into rental properties or opening up new businesses that they can also focus on to help invest the money that they have, kind of creating generational wealth. There's even, I can go into more specifics on another podcast of just, there are things where you can create a family business and your family operates in it and it does certain things that generate income and expenses. And a lot of wealthy families are known to do that.
Yeah.
On top of trusts and everything else.
Cool. Thank you.
Any questions? Eddie's so quiet. I expected to get interrupted so many times.
I just feel crummy still from those shots.
Oh.
Yeah, so I don't know. I got my COVID and my flu shot on Friday at the same time. It's probably not a great idea.
One in each arm or the same
arm? And I'm kind of blah.
Are your arms sore?
What's that?
Are your arms sore?
Nah, not really.
Okay. That's because.
But let me ask you, Sarah, when people start talking to you about generational wealth, do you ever talk to them talk to a financial advisor to put them in the right direction how to build on their generational wealth? Or do you just listen to them?
No, so I have some clients where I actually meet with their financial advisors on a quarterly basis, just say, hey, this is the tax implications they're going for so far this year. And it gets played into how they want to build their wealth, because we don't deal in stocks and bonds and insurances and all of that. So we do have a few clients which is why I mentioned if meeting with a lawyer, it's not that big of a deal. It's kind of like what we do with our other clients, just to make sure, like, you don't want to sit here and have 5 different people and then have to have meetings with 5 different people and nobody knows what the other is doing, and you're really not getting a full rounded set of advice.
Yeah. Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. And something I've noticed too is there's a lot of wealth advisors that if you don't have a lot of assets, they don't want to deal with you at all. So it's harder for the people who are just getting started. And I do have a few people I network with that they're like, everybody's got to start from somewhere. So
Exactly. I'm drawing a blank with other questions. I mean, that was the one that popped into my head. So
yes. Well, and it's also important if someone has a business, and we've talked about this before, is creating a succession plan.
Oh yeah.
Whether that's you're giving it down to family members, or I've seen it where people pass it on to an employee who's been with them for many years, and or if they just sell the company, like just have a succession plan in place. I've seen companies where I always feel bad because they come to me way after the fact, but they treat it as if they're the asset. They're the guy or the gal or whatever. And
they treat it more as a succession plan or as a key person situation, Sarah?
So they treat it like they're the key person. So when they get older, they can't pass it on, because I even had a conversation with a client. He's talked to his clients, and they're like, oh, if you sell or leave, like, we'll just go find somebody else. Like, we won't ever stay. Yeah. You're our guy. And it's a lot of companies are like that. And it's always one of those of, if you're building a company, like, yes, you're going to be that person for the first few years to get it off the ground, but thinking of, hey, I want to take a vacation. I want to spend time with my family, or I might want to sell in like 3 years and get the max for my money. Or if I died tomorrow, I want to make sure my business stays in place. Yeah. So there's always a lot of planning that a lot of, especially smaller businesses, don't pay attention to.
That's true. I was going to say what we see, and I'm sure you've seen it too, Ed, is in our industry, especially dealing with life insurance, if you have a sole proprietor and that's their business, they always believe the value of their business is 10 times more than what the actual value is, because they are the business. So we try to talk with clients about that too, for succession planning.
I've worked with people that they don't want to talk about succession plan. And usually those are the people that they're a mess. They're successful despite themselves. You walk into their office and there's a pile of papers, which I'm like, how the hell do you ever find anything in this place? But they're very successful, and it's just like, you just shake your head, but
no, that's true. That's true.
We can lead a horse to water, but we can't make that horse drink,
100%.
That's the problem, and like I said, nobody wants to think of the end, what will happen if, Sarah doesn't come to work, at her office that day. Who carries on,
Right,
it's just a stagnant business that goes and closes up. I mean, what you're seeing, like, with a lot of farmers and a lot of agriculture places and just little mom and pop places, their kids don't want to do that. They don't want to continue the business.
I know.
Yeah. So, I mean, even if you're smart enough to set it up that you sell it to somebody, that's great. But if you die unexpectedly and you don't have anything in place, that business is done. All that work that you did, I want to build up something to leave a legacy to my family, it's just gone. because there's nobody that knows what's going on because you never told anybody what's going on.
That's true. That's true.
Mhm.
And that's why it's important not only to have like a business succession plan in place. One of the elements of that is a buy-sell agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that you set up. Well, I do have somebody that's interested, and they're going to purchase the business when I eventually retire, or God forbid something else happens. It's all written down in place,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where Ed and I can also come in, Sarah, just as an FYI, to help them fund that buy-sell agreement.
Yeah.
So, so
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of places where it just devolves because of people over assuming how much they should be getting paid, especially in the accounting tax world. I've seen a lot of older tax people bank on the retirement of their business. Mm-hmm. And there was one I was looking at acquiring a few years ago, and it kind of broke my heart. I'm an open heart or a big heart for people. It's a small little country town. He was older and having health issues. His employees were older and having just older. So if he sold, none of his employees would stay. And then it's so you had to be from the town, but it was such a small town. Trying to hire employees was going to be very difficult. And it's one of those towns where they're going to want to meet face to face. They don't do electronics, and he was trying to just sell it for his retirement. And I saw the prices just keep dropping. And I'm like, I wish I could help you, but I wouldn't be doing your clients a service.
Yeah.
It was sad.
You need that transition time from the original owner or the former owner to the new owner to get the endorsement from the original owner with their clients or for their clients, and it takes a little time, So
and it's not the first time I've heard this where somebody, we're working with business owner, and they go, when I die, I'll worry about it then. Well, it's too late then. It's not an if question. It's going to happen.
It's a when.
Yeah.
You don't have that in place. You're just leaving a mess for the people that you leave behind.
I know.
Yeah.
And it's just,
I actually have that with
head in the
some
sand and
now.
it's not going to happen. It could happen tomorrow.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've seen that too. Is the main owner passes away and the family has to step in and get involved, and taxes are delayed because they don't know what's going on, and
it's crazy.
The accounting was not great. So it was one of those of I've had that happen a few times, and it's really, really sad when that happens. Because everybody's thrown into it and they don't know what's going on. So I'm always big of cross-training everybody. Every company I've ever worked for, it's you're going to know how to do your job. And my standpoint wasn't even if the business goes under or I pass away. It was more, if I go on vacation, I don't want to come back to a hot mess what was the point of me going on vacation or being contacted on my vacation? I've had that happen many times where I actually went on vacation and every day, multiple times a day, I was getting phone calls because nobody knew how to do it. And I'm like, okay.
That's
exactly.
No, and like we said, it happens all the time. Nobody gets out of this alive.
No.
It's inevitable. And it's
eventually. And I also wanted to mention, so something that happens with election years.
Okay, I'm going to step away for a second, guys, but I'll be right back.
Okay, so we're going to talk about everything possible to get Eddie in trouble where he's going to get
I don't doubt that, so I'll be back.
No, what I was going to say is since it's an election year, typically what happens is you see a lot of promises on this is what I'm going to do to change the tax code. This is what I'm going to do to help people. And we did an episode a few weeks ago about the way tax laws are created.
Right.
So I encourage anyone who's listening now or watching, go back and watch that recording because it's very intriguing on how it needs to happen. They can't just sign something into law. It actually has to go through Congress and go through some committees before they can sign it.
Right.
And every year, about November, December, is when they decide to make changes for the tax code, usually. There's always changes. So if you're unsure where you're going to be at, I always have my clients reach out about end of October, early November. That way they can get on a plan of like, oh, hey, this is what you paid last year. You need to pay this amount. Or if things have changed, we can look at a few numbers and say, okay, hey, you need to pay more, or you might need to not pay as much.
Right.
Which is very important. So for people who don't know, if you don't pay 90% of the taxes owed by December 31st, the IRS charges you penalties and fees. Or no, I'm sorry, not fees, because fees are limited. Interest. They charge you penalties and interest.
Yes.
Because I get that question all the time. They're like, well, we paid it. Well, technically you paid a good chunk of it, but you did not pay the full amount or most of the amount before December. Yeah. I could go on about the IRS. I'm like one of those of every time I hear about them getting rid of it, I'm like, yes.
But they're still here.
They're still here. I think it was like last year someone had mentioned, I think Congress was like, oh yeah, we're going to dissolve the IRS. And I was getting so excited. And then I started researching it and noticed that they've been talking about it for 15, 20 years. And I'm like, oh,
it's not going to happen. Too many employees and too much power.
Yeah, they are hiring IRS agents as well. So if you are current with your IRS filings, you don't owe them any money, you can check the requirements and see if you want to be hired by the IRS.
That's right.
Not a job I would want. But yeah.
Well, it's not suited for everybody, but the people that are there seem like they enjoy it. So they do.
We'll go with that. Depending on who you get on customer service.
That's right.
I've talked to some really, really nice people and some other people that you could just tell. And I take it as they're also dealing with the general public. You never know the kind of phone call they get right before they pick up yours. So I try to provide a little bit more grace. But yeah, no. And what's worse is like now, because there are so many more agents, all of my clients are getting flooded with letters. And so they're freaking out.
I'm sure.
And it's like,
so they call you then.
Yeah, they're calling me and it's like, no, this is what's going on here. It's so much fun when they hire new people.
It's in any industry, any business.
Right. I was going to say, it's like with any company, there's training that needs to go along with it. And somebody we've talked about this before, IPINs, which is your little security code for you to show you are who you say you are with the IRS. It's really good if you've had fraud against your account. You can figure out how to file it on the IRS website or talk to your tax person. But what I was going to mention is they got the letter probably about a month ago, and it was resent from January. And it's like, you're just now getting... I needed it to file taxes, but it was still like, you're just now, that's a few months late.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it is. And I mean, I'm thankful that they're sending out notices, because we were getting calls of like, hey, I got this refund check, or hey, I didn't get my refund. And they have to log into the IRS website to see, oh, you should have gotten a notice. They applied it to like some past due amount. There should be a notice on what those past due amounts are. So yeah, but they never got the notice. It was just like, hey, it's 9 months later. Why don't I have my refund?
And you only get notices in regular mail, not like email or anything like that, right?
Correct. If you get an IRS notification in email, I will tell you, do not click on any link. Go to the IRS website directly and log in using your ID Me and look at the notifications there.
Right.
I don't know if they're eventually going to roll out to where they do emails, which is why it's just best to always just go to your IRS website. they're making a lot of electronic changes. When in doubt, go to the IRS website directly.
Yeah. What is that address? Do you know?
It is irs.gov.
Perfect.
And what's nice is they actually made it to where it's very user friendly. So like the screen, it looks very appealing to the eye. And how can we help you? They give you like 9 little main things that they're looking into. Their actual IRS account, like if you log into it, you do have to kind of pay attention and to see what you need to click on.
All right.
But it's not too complicated.
It's probably a little more user friendly than it was, say, pre-COVID.
Yes, it is more user friendly, and we have some older clients or just clients who don't do technology so well, and we'll walk them through the IRS website. Like, okay, log in, go here. This is where you'll see your notices. It gives them more peace. So something that me and the employees try to do is, we know taxes are stressful. We know accounting's stressful for people who don't like it.
Yes.
And we try to alleviate the stress as much as possible.
Yeah, and if technology is an issue for some people, or they just don't, some people it's just because they don't use technology, they don't want to use it. Some people are more like, I don't trust the government with all this stuff or whatever, so that's why they don't use it.
I have a few of those clients, and then I have a few of the other clients, and they're very smart people. They used to be like engineers and lawyers and like just really high level smart people, and they're just like, I'm not going to try to learn how to use a computer. I refuse. I'm like, that's okay. That's why we build a hybrid, so we can meet you in person and get your paper. It's fine.
That's right. That's funny, So October 15th is the next deadline.
October 15th, yes. Yep.
And that's the last one for the year, right?
That's the last one for the year. If you don't file then, of course, then there's penalties and interest.
Right.
That will be accumulated. For people who might be listening, if they filed the ERC claim, the IRS has started opening that up again and kind of sitting it. They're still a little slow.
And what is the ERC claim?
The employee retention credits, the one from 2020 and 2021, where if your business didn't perform or had to shut down, you could get some of those payroll taxes back.
Right.
There were very strict requirements that you needed to meet, including if you got a PPP loan, very complicated calculations. But it got put on hold because of all this farming spammers that were like, yeah, you apply. Like, we could totally apply for you. I mean, I even got it for me, and I'm like, I was one employee and I do not qualify for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was funny when I was getting those calls. I'm like, it would be nice if you could also look and see what companies do, because you're calling me and I can file it for myself if I qualify. I'm just,
exactly.
But the sad part is the people who use that paid the fees. And if they don't get the ERC money because they weren't actually allowed to have it, they're just sorry out of luck.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, that was great. Any other information?
No, I haven't had enough coffee today.
Well, you're almost at your magic time anyways.
I know.
Magic time?
Magic time.
Almost had 40 minutes there, Sarah.
I'm going to learn magic just so when he says that I can just like pull a rabbit out of a hat.
Yeah,
I'm so going to now have to get a magic hat with a rabbit in it.
Watch me as I pull this rabbit out of my hat, Rocky.
Hold on. Let's look at Amazon.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Amazon to see if they have that. Magic.
You must get the moose and squirrel, Natasha.
Yeah. The moose and squirrel. And Boris.
There's a kid magician where it's a hat with a rabbit and it even has a ribbon.
How fancy.
Oh, a ribbon.
So, well, I'm sorry I had to step away, guys, but I think it almost feels like I have the flu from the flu shot.
Oh,
And I
no.
thought that was a myth that you couldn't get the flu from the flu shot, but I just
Oh,
feel like
yeah, no, you can.
So,
It depends on your body because they give you a live virus on some of them and a dead virus on others. So I think it's having the 2 shots in one day just weakened your immune system.
And it was the weirdest thing. I never saw anything like this. So they put like this little round Band-Aid on your arms,
Mhm.
and it's like white circle with like a little mesh thing in the middle, and they poke you right through there. And I guess you don't bleed afterwards. I never saw anything like it. It's just
Wow.
really odd, you know.
That's interesting. It's kind of like if you want to put a nail in a wall and you don't want the
Kinda.
plaster or whatever to chip, you put a piece of tape there.
Kinda, yeah. It was kinda
Painter's tape.
odd. Yeah,
And Sarah's like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I know. I'm like, that makes no sense to me why they would do that. But of course, I'm not in the health field. So,
So, I mean, unfortunately, because I have that lung disease, alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency disease, if anybody knows what that is. So they want me to have the shots just as a preventive measure, but I feel like garbage, you
No,
know?
I'm sorry. Sorry to hear
So,
that. We should probably end this then.
we're
I don't
gonna
want you
end
to
the
faint.
show. I know, right? Nobody's here to get me. And Becca will become knocking on my door. Eddie. Eddie's not going to answer the phone or the door. So, but if you like working with people like you, we're the people to see. 716-541-4118, Eddie Bednar's Insurance, or ebiagency.com. Go to the partners page. You'll find Sassy Sarah because she's number one.
number one.
And we want to thank, before we taped the show today, we did the inaugural first episode of Buffalo Fights
Yes.
Alive. And during the show, we had a top of 21 million viewers. So we're really excited. So check that out. We are going to be posting that on the audio sites sometime today, but you can see it now on YouTube.
Awesome.
And for your buddy Sassy Sarah, Donnie Lowe, and Eddie Buffalo, tune into Wednesday for Insurance Questions podcast. What are we doing, Don? Are we doing viewers' questions, or do you have a topic for this week?
I have a topic, but we can do viewers' questions. So
Little bit.
let's see what the questions are.
I think people really like that because there's so many questions. And, even though when I think, what questions are they going to ask? We've answered pretty much everything. They always surprise me as something else,
I know. It's great.
A lot of it, you kind of wonder what the motive is behind their question.
That's true.
Doozy.
It's the question behind the question.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for joining us. And until we meet again, be good to yourself. Life is worth living. Right. See you on Wednesday.
Ciao.